The alarm bells rang through the space station like an angry metal bird screaming in the dark. Red lights flashed across steel walls, bathing the long corridors in blood-colored pulses. Captain Jake Morrison shoved himself out of his chair before the second alarm could sound. His boots slammed against the grated floor as he sprinted through the narrow hallways, every clang of metal on metal echoing his urgency. He had spent years aboard Outpost Helios, Earth's farthest listening post at the edge of the solar system, but this was different. He felt it in his chest, the kind of fear that came before something big, something that would not be forgotten. By the time he burst into the control center, the room was already alive with tension. Dozens of officers hunched over glowing monitors, their hands flying across keys and screens. The hum of electronics mixed with the sharp clicks of boots on steel. The atmosphere was heavy, the way a storm feels before the lightning strikes. "What do we have?" Jake demanded, his voice cutting through the noise. Lieutenant Amy Chen, his second-in-command, spun around in her chair. Her eyes, usually calm, were wide with unease. She pointed to the massive screen dominating the front wall. "Contact, Captain. It appeared at the edge of our system 20 minutes ago. Computer says it's a ship." Jake's eyes narrowed. The screen displayed something vast and alien. It floated against the black ocean of space, an immense shape covered in irregular crystal structures. Some of those crystals glowed faintly blue, like the heartbeat of a dying giant, while others were dark and broken. Jake stepped closer. The thing was huge, at least 10 times larger than Earth's biggest carrier. But it didn't look like metal. Its surface shimmered like stone, fractured and jagged. Pieces of its hull drifted away into the void, leaving trails of sparkling debris. "What is that?" someone whispered from the back of the room. Jake ignored the fear in the voice. "Speed?" he asked sharply. "Barely moving at all," Amy replied. "The computer thinks it's badly damaged, and sir, it's transmitting." The control center went quiet. Every officer turned slightly, their eyes flicking between Jake and the glowing, half-dead ship. "Transmitting what?" Jake asked. Amy's fingers tapped her console. "A distress signal, weak, fragmented. Dr. Hayes is working on it now." In the adjoining room, Dr. Lisa Hayes sat hunched over her station, headphones clamped tight against her ears. She was young, barely in her 30s, but she was Earth's best linguist when it came to alien languages. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, replaying bursts of static mixed with haunting musical tones. "Got something?" Lisa called. Her voice carried into the control room. She pulled the headphones off and walked in, her face pale but focused. Jake met her halfway. "Talk to me." "It's not in any language I know," Lisa said quickly, "but they're using fragments of Galactic Standard." That made Jake's stomach twist. Galactic Standard was the language of the Council, the loose coalition of alien species that Earth had joined 2 centuries ago. A language of politics, trade, and rules. The fact that the ship knew it at all was chilling. Lisa's voice dropped. "They're asking for help, words like sanctuary, abandoned, please." The room seemed to breathe as one. The officers, the flickering screens, even the steady hum of life support, all of it hung on those broken words from across the void. Jake turned back to the screen. The alien vessel drifted closer, still hours away but now detailed enough that he could see faint light patterns pulsing across its crystalline body. Not random, rhythmic, like veins, like something alive. "How many life signs?" he asked. Amy hesitated before answering. 50,000, give or take." The words hit Jake like a blow. 50,000, not just a few survivors, not just a handful of lost wanderers. 50,000 lives on a dying ship creeping toward Earth space. The control room filled with murmurs. Someone swore under their breath. Another officer crossed himself. "Sir," Amy said quietly, "Earth Command is already asking what we intend to do. Other stations are reporting the contact too. The Council will know soon if they don't already." Jake's jaw tightened. The Council, that nest of alien species who tolerated Earth's presence but never trusted them. Humanity had clawed its way into their ranks, but only just. One mistake, one rash decision, and they could be cast out. And in this galaxy, being alone meant being prey. But on the screen, the alien ship was breaking apart piece by piece. Flares of crystal burst silently into space. The glow of its veins dimmed, flickered, then struggled back to life. Whatever species they were dying, and they were begging for help. Jake's mind warred between politics and instinct. He thought of the Council's cold rules. He thought of his own daughter, safe back on Earth, and how he would want someone, anyone, to help if she were out there. He drew a slow breath. Keep working, Dr. Hayes. I want clearer translation. Amy, monitor the power systems. If that ship dies before it reaches us, all 50,000 lives go with it. Hours crawled by, heavy with tension. Finally, when the alien ship drifted close enough for stronger signals, Lisa leaned back from her console with a gasp. I've got them. The speakers crackled, then filled the room with a sound like music played on broken glass. Notes that shimmered and fractured, rising and falling in haunting chords. Then slowly words emerged. This is KTHVAR, our ship dying, our people dying. We traveled far, dark star took our world. Council said we not welcome. Council cast us out, please sanctuary. The voice broke, dissolved into static, then returned with a sound like crying. The silence that followed was unbearable. Jake stood frozen, staring at the crystalline giant limping toward them. 50,000 exiles, a species thrown away by the same council Earth still feared, and now they were here. Captain, Amy said carefully, if we take them in, it could mean trouble with the council. If we don't, they all die. Jake's throat was dry. His officers stared at him, waiting for his word, politics on one side, compassion on the other. He looked back at the alien ship. Shards of crystal were breaking off in waves now, scattering into the void like dying embers. The soft lights pulsing through the hull were fading faster. He raised the communicator. This is Captain Jake Morrison of Earth Defense. To the KTHVAR ship, you are welcome here. The control room went dead quiet. A single decision spoken aloud, a choice that would change everything. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the alien voice returned, trembling with relief. Thank you, we will not forget this kindness. Jake lowered the communicator. His officers still stared, stunned, some fearful, some proud. But Jake knew one thing for certain. Humanity had just stepped onto a path from which there was no turning back. Outside, the KTHVAR ship drifted closer, crystals glowing faintly with what looked almost like hope. The alarm bells rang through the space station like an angry metal bird screaming in the dark. Red lights flashed across steel walls, bathing the long corridors in blood-colored pulses. Captain Jake Morrison shoved himself out of his chair before the second alarm could sound. His boots slammed against the grated floor as he sprinted through the narrow hallways, every clang of metal on metal echoing his urgency. He had spent years aboard Outpost Helios, Earth's farthest listening post at the edge of the solar system, but this was different. He felt it in his chest, the kind of fear that came before something big, something that would not be forgotten. By the time he burst into the control center, the room was already alive with tension. Dozens of officers hunched over glowing monitors, their hands flying across keys and screens. The hum of electronics mixed with the sharp clicks of boots on steel. The atmosphere was heavy, the way a storm feels before the lightning strikes. What do we have? Jake demanded, his voice cutting through the noise. Lieutenant Amy Chen, his second-in-command, spun around in her chair. Her eyes, usually calm, were wide with unease. She pointed to the massive screen dominating the front wall. Contact, Captain. It appeared at the edge of our system 20 minutes ago. Computer says it's a ship. Jake's eyes narrowed. The screen displayed something vast and alien. It floated against the black ocean of space, an immense shape covered in irregular crystal structures. Some of those crystals glowed faintly blue, like the heartbeat of a dying giant, while others were dark and broken. Jake stepped closer. The thing was huge, at least 10 times larger than Earth's biggest carrier. But it didn't look like metal. Its surface shimmered like stone, fractured and jagged. Pieces of its hull drifted away into the void, leaving trails of sparkling debris. What is that? Someone whispered from the back of the room. Jake ignored the fear in the voice. Speed, he asked sharply. Barely moving at all, Amy replied. The computer thinks it's badly damaged, and sir, it's transmitting. The control center went quiet. Every officer turned slightly, their eyes flicking between Jake and the glowing, half-dead ship. Transmitting what? Jake asked. Amy's fingers tapped her console. A distress signal, weak, fragmented. Dr. Hayes is working on it now. In the adjoining room, Dr. Lisa Hayes sat hunched over her station, headphones clamped tight against her ears. She was young, barely in her 30s. but she was Earth's best linguist when it came to alien languages. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, replaying bursts of static mixed with haunting musical tones. "Got something?" Lisa called. Her voice carried into the control room. She pulled the headphones off and walked in, her face pale but focused. Jake met her halfway. "Talk to me." "It's not in any language I know," Lisa said quickly, "but they're using fragments of Galactic Standard." That made Jake's stomach twist. Galactic Standard was the language of the Council, the loose coalition of alien species that Earth had joined 2 centuries ago. A language of politics, trade, and rules. The fact that the ship knew it at all was chilling. Lisa's voice dropped. "They're asking for help, words like sanctuary, abandoned, please." The room seemed to breathe as one. The officers, the flickering screens, even the steady hum of life support, all of it hung on those broken words from across the void. Jake turned back to the screen. The alien vessel drifted closer, still hours away but now detailed enough that he could see faint light patterns pulsing across its crystalline body. Not random, rhythmic, like veins, like something alive. "How many life signs?" he asked. Amy hesitated before answering. 50,000, give or take." The words hit Jake like a blow. 50,000, not just a few survivors, not just a handful of lost wanderers. 50,000 lives on a dying ship creeping toward Earth space. The control room filled with murmurs. Someone swore under their breath. Another officer crossed himself. "Sir," Amy said quietly, "Earth Command is already asking what we intend to do. Other stations are reporting the contact too. The Council will know soon if they don't already." Jake's jaw tightened. The Council, that nest of alien species who tolerated Earth's presence but never trusted them. Humanity had clawed its way into their ranks, but only just. One mistake, one rash decision, and they could be cast out. And in this galaxy, being alone meant being prey. But on the screen, the alien ship was breaking apart piece by piece. Flares of crystal burst silently into space. The glow of its veins dimmed, flickered, then struggled back to life. Whatever species they were dying, and they were begging for help. Jake's mind warred between politics and instinct. He thought of the Council's cold rules. He thought of his own daughter, safe back on Earth, and how he would want someone, anyone, to help if she were out there. He drew a slow breath. "Keep working, Dr. Hayes. I want clearer translation. Amy, monitor the power systems. If that ship dies before it reaches us, all 50,000 lives go with it." Hours crawled by, heavy with tension. Finally, when the alien ship drifted close enough for stronger signals, Lisa leaned back from her console with a gasp. "I've got them." The speakers crackled, then filled the room with a sound like music played on broken glass. Notes that shimmered and fractured, rising and falling in haunting chords. Then slowly words emerged. "This is KTHVAR, our ship dying, our people dying. We traveled far, Dark Star took our world. Council said we not welcome. Council cast us out, please sanctuary." The voice broke, dissolved into static, then returned with a sound like crying. The silence that followed was unbearable. Jake stood frozen, staring at the crystalline giant limping toward them. 50,000 exiles, a species thrown away by the same Council Earth still feared, and now they were here. "Captain," Amy said carefully, "if we take them in, it could mean trouble with the Council. If we don't, they all die." Jake's throat was dry. His officers stared at him, waiting for his word, politics on one side, compassion on the other. He looked back at the alien ship. Shards of crystal were breaking off in waves now, scattering into the void like dying embers. The soft lights pulsing through the hull were fading faster. He raised the communicator. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of Earth Defense. To the KTHVAR ship, you are welcome here." The control room went dead quiet. A single decision spoken aloud, a choice that would change everything. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the alien voice returned, trembling with relief. Thank you. We will not forget this kindness." Jake lowered the communicator. His officers still stared, stunned, some fearful, some proud. But Jake knew one thing for certain. Humanity had just stepped onto a path from which there was no turning back. Outside, the KTHVAR ship drifted closer, crystals glowing faintly with what looked almost like hope. Cliffhanger end of Part 1. Humanity has chosen to help the dying KTHVAR, but the Galactic Council is about to respond. Would you like me to continue with Part 2 right away, where Earth Command, the Council, and the first real consequences of this choice come crashing in? You said, P2, ChatGPT said. Great, here's Part 2 of the Crystal Exodus, humanity's choice that changed the galaxy. Tilde 1, 401, 500 words, rising stakes, political tension, emotional beats, ending on a cliffhanger. Part 2, the first consequences. The docking clamps shuddered as they locked onto the alien ship. For a moment, the entire station seemed to vibrate, as though the massive vessel's weight pressed against its walls. Inside the control room, the crew watched in silence. On the screen, the KTHVAR ship loomed like a wounded leviathan, its fractured crystal body drifting into position beside outpost Helios. From this close, it was even more unsettling. Some of the crystal structures pulsed faintly, like organs struggling to keep their host alive. Others were blackened and cracked, leaking shards into the void. Along the jagged surface, dim lights flickered in complex patterns, almost like signals. Docking stable, Lieutenant Amy Chen reported. Her voice was calm, but Jake saw the tension in her shoulders. Airlock integrity confirmed. Jake nodded. Prepare medical teams and security. He hated himself for adding that last word, but 50,000 desperate beings stepping onto human soil. They had no idea what to expect. He needed to protect both sides. The comm crackled. Captain Morrison, came the voice of Dr. Lisa Hayes. I've established direct contact. Their leader wants to speak with you before anyone boards. Jake gestured to patch it through. The speakers filled with that strange, glass-like music. Slowly, words emerged in broken Galactic standard. We thank you, this kindness saves us. I am Shandar, elder of KTHVAR. We carry children, sick, old. We ask only for shelter, we bring no harm. Jake's throat tightened. He could almost hear the exhaustion in Shandar's fractured voice. Centuries of travel, betrayal by the Council, the death of their world. And now, all that remained of their people floated beside his station. You'll have shelter, Jake said firmly. Earth will not turn you away. The crew shifted uneasily. They knew the Council would not approve, but the words were spoken. There was no undoing them now. The first KTHVAR entered through the airlock 2 hours later. Jake stood with Amy and a squad of armed security officers, watching as the figures stepped into human space for the first time. They were taller than humans, most at least 7 feet, their bodies shaped like statues carved from shimmering stone. Crystals jutted from their shoulders and arms, glowing faintly in shifting colors, blues, greens, soft golds. Their skin was not smooth but faceted like diamond cut by hand. Yet they moved with surprising grace, their footsteps ringing faintly against the steel floor. Children clung to taller figures, their smaller crystals flickering like candlelight. Elderly KTHVAR leaned on crystalline staffs that hummed softly with hidden energy. Every one of them looked exhausted, but in their faint glow, Jake thought he saw hope flicker. The humans on duty stared, caught between awe and fear. One of the KTHVAR stepped forward, his crystals a steady blue-white. I am Shandar, the alien said, his translator rendering the words in a voice both musical and broken. We are in your debt. Jake extended his hand instinctively, though he wasn't sure if they even understood the gesture. Shandar tilted his head, then raised his own crystalline arm. The two hands, one flesh, one stone, met and lingered. It was a handshake across species, a promise. 3 hours later, Jake found himself in the command briefing chamber with Earth Command on HoloLink. The holographic faces of generals and politicians hovered around the table, shimmering in faint blue. You did what? Admiral Harker's voice boomed across the chamber. 50,000 unknown aliens. Do you have any idea what this means, Captain? Jake kept his voice steady. Yes, sir. It means they're alive because of us. This isn't charity work, snapped Senator Graves, a gaunt man whose hologram flickered with irritation. It's politics. The Council already contacted us. They're demanding an explanation. They made it very clear. The KTHVAR are not welcome in Council space. If we harbor them, we risk sanctions or worse. Jake's fists clenched. So we let them die? 50,000 lives, Senator. Children, families, elders. We'd be murderers by inaction. This isn't about morality, Graves retorted. It's about survival. Earth is barely tolerated in the Council as it is. We break their rules, we get expelled. And if that happens, Captain, humanity won't last a decade. We need them. Their technology, their trade routes, their protection. Jake stared at the man's flickering image. And what happens when it's us who needs help? When humanity's the one cast out? Do we want the galaxy to remember us as the species that turned its back? The room fell silent. Admiral Harker's face softened slightly, though his voice stayed hard. We understand your position, Captain, but you've put Earth in a dangerous spot. The Council will convene within days. Until then, keep the KTHVAR contained. No unnecessary broadcasts, no promises you can't keep. The holograms winked out, leaving Jake alone in the dim chamber. He exhaled slowly. He had just defied the most powerful government in the galaxy, and the storm was only beginning. Meanwhile, in the medbay, Dr. Hayes studied the KTHVAR closely. A child lay on one of the diagnostic beds, crystals flickering erratically like a failing heartbeat. Lisa's human instruments struggled to keep up with the alien physiology. Shandar stood beside her, his glowing eyes fixed on the child. Our young weaken, long travel drains us. We need minerals, special waters. Without them, they fade. Lisa frowned at her readings. Your crystals, they're alive. They're not just part of you, they are you. Shandar inclined his head. We are two, yet one, flesh and crystal. Memory lives inside crystal, history, family. If crystal dies, all that was is lost. Lisa felt a chill. These beings carried their entire legacy within their bodies. If the Council had cast them out, they hadn't just doomed a people, they had tried to erase a history. She met Shandar's gaze. We'll help you, whatever it takes. Shandar's crystals pulsed faintly brighter, the alien equivalent of a smile. 2 days later, the first riot broke out on Mars colony. Jake read the reports in his quarters, his head pounding. Angry colonists had stormed the water facilities, demanding that resources not be sent to support stone invaders. Several were injured, one killed. The broadcast feeds were worse. Across human space, people argued in fear and anger. Some saw the KTHVAR as refugees in need, others as a threat that could doom humanity's fragile place in the galaxy. And then came the message from the Council. Jake stood in the command hall as the hologram flickered into existence. Ambassador Zethar appeared, a towering alien with green skin, 4 arms folded in contempt. His 4 eyes glowed with cold authority. Captain Morrison, the ambassador said, voice dripping with disdain. Earth has violated Council protocol. You have harbored a species declared incompatible. The KTHVAR are forbidden in Council space. You will eject them immediately, or Earth will face severe punishment. Jake's stomach churned, but he forced his voice steady. They asked for sanctuary, we gave it. That's not a crime. Zethar's 4 eyes narrowed. Compassion is weakness. Rules exist for order. You defy them, you will pay. You have 1 month to comply. The hologram vanished. Around Jake, his officers stared in grim silence. Amy Chen broke it first. Sir, if they follow through, we could be expelled, cut off from trade, from protection. Lisa's voice was fierce. And if we send the KTHVAR back, they die. That's not protection, that's execution. Jake pressed his hands against the table, the weight of his choice crushing him. 50,000 lives behind him, billions of humans ahead, the Council's shadow looming over them all. Before he could speak, the alarms blared again. The control center lit up with red, and the screen filled with new signals. Amy's face went pale. Captain, multiple Council warships have just entered the system. The room froze. The choice Jake had made was no longer theory. The Council was here. The Council warships hung at the edge of the solar system like black knives against the stars. Sleek, angular, and bristling with weapons, they dwarfed the human fleet stationed nearby. Outpost Helios's sensors identified 6 vessels, scouts and frigates, not the massive dreadnoughts the Council could field, but still powerful enough to crush any single human ship. In the control room, the tension was suffocating. Every officer stared at the tactical displays, the glowing red triangles marking hostile ships inching closer. They're holding position just outside Mars orbit, Amy Chen reported. No weapon locks yet, but they're not here to negotiate. Jake folded his arms tightly, trying to project calm. Open a channel. The main screen flickered, and Ambassador Zethar appeared once more. His 4 eyes glared out of the projection, his voice sharp as a blade. You defy us still. The KTHVAR are criminals, parasites. You will eject them into space immediately, or our ships will act. Jake felt his anger rise. 50,000 lives are not parasites, they're refugees. Zethar's expression didn't shift. They are incompatible. They poison every society they touch. Humanity is young. Do not let their lies destroy you before you grow. Behind Jake, Lisa Hayes muttered, "That's not an argument, that's propaganda." Jake clenched his fists. "You talk about order, ambassador, but order without compassion isn't civilization, it's tyranny." The alien's eyes narrowed, glowing faintly red. "You have 1 week. Comply or Earth will burn." The signal cut off, leaving the room in silence. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He walked the observation deck, staring out at the KTHVAR ship. Its crystals pulsed faintly in the dark, like a wounded animal breathing shallowly. Beyond it, the Council fleet lingered, a constant reminder that every moment was borrowed time. Lisa joined him quietly, carrying a tablet. "I've been analyzing the KTHVAR language," she said, her voice low. "Shandar helped me. There's something you need to see." Jake glanced at the screen. Complex patterns of crystal light danced across it like constellations shifting. "What am I looking at?" Lisa's eyes burned with excitement. "This isn't just language, it's memory. The KTHVAR crystals, they don't just store energy, they store knowledge. Every KTHVAR carries centuries of memory inside them. History, science, technology, passed down in living crystal." Jake frowned, "And the Council calls that incompatible." Lisa shook her head. "No, they call it dangerous because they can't control it." She tapped her tablet, bringing up fragmented translations. "Shandar says the Council demanded access to the crystal network. They wanted to use it to spy across the galaxy. The KTHVAR refused. That's why they were cast out." Jake's chest tightened. It wasn't about incompatibility. It was about power. The Council wanted the crystals. When they couldn't have them, they destroyed an entire world to make an example. Lisa's voice softened. "Captain, if this is true, the Council isn't just cruel. They're hiding something much bigger, something they'll kill to protect." Before Jake could respond, the comm crackled. "Captain Morrison, intelligence reports incoming from our stealth unit," came Amy's voice, tight with urgency. Jake turned sharply. "On my way." The intelligence bay was dim, its walls lined with glowing data streams. Officer Kate Sullivan, their top intelligence specialist, looked up as Jake entered. Her face was pale, her eyes fixed on the screen before her. "We infiltrated Council archives," she said quickly. "It wasn't easy, but we found this." Files filled the display, records sealed with Council insignia. Kate expanded one, and Jake's stomach turned. The document detailed the fate of species long forgotten. The Velter, the Morak, the Quintal, all declared incompatible by the Council, all cast out. But the secret files told a different story. The Velter had developed energy reflection technology. The Council had labeled them aggressive, then bombed their world into glass. The Morak had discovered advanced genetic adaptation. The Council branded them unstable and scattered their survivors across barren moons. The Quintal had mastered stealth drives. The Council called them dangerously secretive and eradicated their fleets. It was a pattern. Any species that developed something the Council couldn't control was declared a threat and destroyed. Jake's mouth went dry. "How many?" Kate's voice shook. "At least 47 in the last 2 centuries, maybe more." Lisa's voice broke. "They weren't incompatible, they were inconvenient." Jake felt his chest tighten. The Council wasn't protecting order, they were eliminating competition. Kate hesitated, then pulled up one final file. "There's something else, you need to see this." The file header glowed, Project Final Solution. Jake read the text aloud, his voice trembling. "Species, human. Designation, threat level rising. Expansion and adaptation rates indicate destabilizing influence. Recommendation, controlled population reduction and technology seizure within 50 years. The room went cold. "They're planning to wipe us out," Lisa whispered. Jake stared at the screen. Every choice he had made suddenly felt heavier. It wasn't just about the KTHVAR anymore. Humanity itself was on the Council's list. Kate scrolled down. Another line caught Jake's eye. Target KTHVAR crystals. Potential for instantaneous galactic communication and coordination. Acquisition priority, critical. Jake's fists clenched. Now it made sense. The Council hadn't just wanted to destroy the KTHVAR. They had wanted their crystals. They had wanted a galaxy-wide surveillance and control system. When the KTHVAR refused, they were erased. Lisa's voice was barely a whisper. They're not refugees, they're survivors of genocide. Jake slammed his fist against the table. And now they want to do the same to us. The next day, Jake met Shandar in the alien medbay. The Elder's crystals glowed faintly, their colors muted with exhaustion. Jake spoke plainly. We know the truth about the Council, about what they did to you, about what they planned for us. Shandar bowed his crystalline head. You see it now, we were not alone, many others scattered, hiding, waiting, but none strong enough to fight back. Jake leaned forward. Are there more of you, survivors? The Elder's crystals pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Yes, across the galaxy, we share through the crystal network, memories, warnings, we are never truly alone, and now with you we have hope. Jake realized the weight of what Shandar was saying. The KTHVAR weren't just 50,000 survivors. They were the key to a hidden alliance, a galaxy of outcasts who had been waiting for a chance to rise. But before he could respond, the alarms blared again. Amy's voice came sharp over the intercom. Captain, urgent, the Council fleet is powering weapons. Jake's heart dropped. The choice was over. The war was beginning. The red warning lights bathed the control room in pulses of danger. Sirens wailed, monitors filled with flashing alerts, and the steady hum of outpost Helios deepened into a roar of readiness. Council ships are charging weapons, Amy Chen's voice rang out above the chaos. Energy spikes across the fleet. They're preparing to fire. Jake gripped the edge of the command table, his jaw tight. Status of our fleet. 35 ships, sir, Amy answered. Mostly defense frigates and patrol craft, nothing heavier than a destroyer. She hesitated. Against 6 Council warships, the odds aren't good. Jake's mind churned. Human ships were sturdy but basic, designed for patrol and defense, not toe-to-toe combat with Council vessels. They had one advantage only, their adaptability. Humanity had always survived by making do, by mixing and repurposing, by turning weakness into strength. And maybe, just maybe with the KTHVAR, that strength could be multiplied. He slammed his fist down. Get me Shandar now. Moments later, the crystalline elder appeared on the screen, his body glowing faintly with soft blue light. Behind him, dozens of KTHVAR worked in their damaged ship, their crystal forms flickering with exhaustion. Shandar, Jake said urgently, we need more than words, we need power. You told Dr. Hayes about hybrids, your crystals and our machines working together. Can you do it? Shandar's glowing eyes met his. Yes, we began crafting when we arrived. Small but strong, your people must be willing to trust. Lisa Hayes, who had joined the control room, stepped forward. She held up a small object, half crystal, half metal, glowing steadily. They've already made a prototype, she said. I tested it last night. It stabilizes energy flows. Our ships could run faster, stronger, longer, with shields that adapt in real time. Jake's eyes lit with a fierce spark. How many? Enough for 30 ships, Lisa said breathlessly. Not all, but most of the fleet. Jake didn't hesitate. Do it. Get those hybrids into the ships, now. Minutes later, shuttle crews raced between outpost Helios and the human fleet, carrying the glowing hybrids. Engineers worked frantically, ripping open engine cores and shield banks, slotting in the crystal metal devices. Blue light flared as systems came alive, steadier and stronger than before. On the Defiance, Jake's flagship, the change was immediate. His tactical display lit with new power readings. The engines hummed smoother, faster. Shields shimmered with a new kind of resonance, their edges alive with faint crystal glow. Amy's eyes widened as she scanned her console. Captain, I've never seen numbers like this. Shields are self-adjusting. Engines are running at 130% efficiency and stable. Jake's chest tightened with hope. Humanity wasn't powerless anymore. They had something new, something the Council didn't understand. The comm crackled. Tony Garcia, commander of the destroyer Resolute, came through, his voice charged with excitement. Captain, these hybrid cores are unreal. My ship's moving like it's alive. Shields adapt to every incoming scan, and the engines, they feel like they're begging to go faster. Jake allowed himself a grim smile. Then let's give the Council a surprise. The first shot came from the Council. A beam of searing green energy lanced across the void, striking the destroyer horizon. Normally, that would have torn through its hull. Instead, the shields shimmered, flexed, and bent the energy harmlessly aside. Gasps filled the control room. Amy's eyes went wide. The shields they adapted instantly. Jake slammed his fist onto the armrest. Return fire, all ships test your new teeth. The Defiance's forward cannons lit with crystal-enhanced power. The beam they unleashed was sharper, faster, more precise than anything the human fleet had ever fired. It struck a Council frigate square across the bow, tearing through its shields like paper. The enemy ship reeled, its hull sparking, its formation breaking. On the comm, Tony's voice roared. "We've got them. These hybrids turn our weapons into monsters." Human ships darted forward, moving with newfound agility. Their hybrid engines let them weave between enemy fire, vanishing and reappearing with ghost-like speed. Council blasts streaked harmlessly past, while crystal-powered cannons struck again and again. For the first time in history, humans weren't prey, they were hunters. But the Council responded quickly. On their flagship, Admiral Kethmore's voice rang out across the system. "Primitive humans dare wield stolen power. You court annihilation." The enemy fleet shifted into new formation, their weapons focusing in deadly synchrony. A massive barrage of energy beams converged on the Resolute. Jake's chest clenched, Tony evasive. Too late, the destroyer was engulfed in a storm of fire. But when the light cleared, the ship still stood. Its hybrid shields had absorbed the energy glowing white-hot, then redirected it. The stored energy lashed out in a sudden counterbeam, slamming back into the nearest Council frigate. The enemy ship exploded in a bloom of fire and crystal shards. The control room erupted in stunned cries. Amy's voice shook. "Captain, did we just reflect their attack?" Lisa stared at the readouts, her hands trembling. The hybrids aren't just stabilizers. They're alive. They learn, they copy. They turn the enemy's strength back against them. Jake's heart pounded. Then the Council just handed us their own weapons. The battle raged on. Human ships darted and weaved, glowing with crystal light, their attacks sharper and their defenses unyielding. Council ships began to falter, their captains unprepared for prey that fought like predators. On the Defiance, Jake's crew worked furiously. Alarms blared, shields flared, but the ship moved with new grace. For every strike it took, it struck back harder. "Council fleet down by 2 ships, Amy called, "but they're regrouping." Jake leaned forward, eyes blazing. "Then we keep pushing, show them humanity doesn't bow." But then everything changed. A new signal appeared on the tactical display, massive, overwhelming. A shadow eclipsed the other ships as something enormous dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The Divine Authority, a Council dreadnought. Its hull stretched for kilometers, bristling with weapons that glowed with lethal light. Compared to it, even the Defiance was a toy. Amy's voice was barely a whisper. "Captain, that ship could take on our entire fleet alone." Jake's stomach twisted, but he forced steel into his voice. "We don't run, not today." The Divine Authority's comms flared to life. Admiral Kethmore's voice thundered across every channel. "Humans, you dare resist the Council. You dare harbor criminals. You will learn the price of defiance. Today, your species dies." The dreadnought's weapons began to charge, glowing brighter and brighter, enough to split a planet. Jake's hands clenched into fists. The hybrid tech had leveled the field against frigates and cruisers, but against a dreadnought. He glanced at Shandar's faint image on a side screen. The Elder's crystals pulsed with grim light. "There is one more secret," Shandar said quietly. "But it is dangerous. To use it may destroy you or save everything." Jake's breath caught. "What secret?" The Elder leaned closer, his voice heavy with centuries. "The crystals do not just protect, they connect. With them, your fleet can become one." The Divine Authority filled the main view screen like a black sun. Its hull stretched for kilometers, jagged with weapons arrays and armored plating. Energy built in its core, radiating in blinding pulses. One shot from that monster could split a moon. On the Defiance, every officer froze, caught in the looming shadow of death. Amy Chen whispered what everyone was thinking. "Sir, one blast and we're gone." Jake clenched his jaw. He remembered Shandar's words, "With them, your fleet can become one." He turned sharply toward the crystalline Elder's hologram, projected into the corner of the bridge. "Explain, fast." Shandar's body glowed faintly, his voice strained. "The hybrid crystals are fragments of us, pieces of our great network. Separate, they protect. Together, they unify. Each ship becomes a note. Linked, they become a song, stronger than anyone alone. Lisa Hayes leaned forward, eyes wide. He's saying we can synchronize the fleet, every shield, every engine, every weapon, linked into one system. Jake's mind raced. If it worked, their 30 human ships would fight as one entity, reacting faster than any admiral could command. But if it failed, they could all overload and die in a single instant. Amy's face tightened. Captain, it's untested. We don't even know if our systems can handle it. Jake glanced at the dreadnought, its massive guns charging brighter and brighter. Time was up. If we don't try, we're already dead. He took a steady breath. Do it, link the fleet. In engineering bays across the human flotilla, crystal cores flared as technicians connected them to the new network. Blue-white light coursed through conduits, humming with strange resonance. On the Defiance, the deck plates vibrated as the ship came alive. Lights flickered, then steadied, glowing faintly with crystalline sheen. Jake felt it in his bones like a second heartbeat. Amy gasped, staring at her console. Captain, I'm seeing other ships' readouts, not just ours. It's like I can feel them. Lisa's eyes glowed with wonder. The network is sharing information in real time. No delay, no lag, it's instantaneous. Across the comms, Tony Garcia's voice came through, awed and shaken. Captain, I can see your engine output on my display. I can feel your course corrections before you make them. It's like we're part of the same ship. Jake's grip tightened on the armrest. Then let's move as one. The divine authority fired. A colossal beam of energy erupted from its core, a river of emerald light that could have vaporized the Defiance a dozen times over. But the fleet responded as one. Dozens of ships shifted in perfect harmony, forming a lattice of overlapping shields. The hybrid crystals flared white-hot, energy dancing across the network. Instead of piercing through, the beam bent, split, and scattered into the void. The bridge crew cried out in disbelief. We survived, Amy whispered. Not just survived, Lisa corrected, her voice trembling. We absorbed some of it. Jake's eyes narrowed. Then let's give it back. The human fleet turned as one, their weapons glowing with crystal fire. 30 beams converged, merging into a single lance of brilliant white light. It shot across the void, striking the divine authority's forward shields. For the first time in centuries, a council dreadnought staggered. On the enemy ship, alarms lit their bridge, officers shouting in disbelief. The dreadnought's shields held, but they flickered, fractured, weakened. Jake felt the shared vibration of the fleet through the network. Every ship's heartbeat joined with his own. It was more than communication. It was communion. This is it, he growled. Keep pressing. For the next 10 minutes, the battle blazed like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Council frigates tried to flank, but the human fleet shifted in perfect synchrony, moving as one organism. Ships flowed around attacks, weaving in patterns that no single admiral could have commanded. Beams of crystal-powered fire lashed out in unison, carving through enemy hulls. Frigates exploded in waves of burning metal. But the dreadnought fought back. Its weapons hammered the fleet with unrelenting fury, beams slamming into shields, rocking ships with brutal force. Each hit reverberated through the network, pain shared like a body bruised. On the Defiance, Jake gritted his teeth, sweat dripping down his face. He felt the sting of each strike not just in his ship, but in his mind. The network was more than machines, it was people. Every pilot, every crew linked by crystal, their fear, their courage, their determination, all flowing together. Amy's hands shook on her console. Sir, I don't know how much longer we can take this. The link is burning us alive. Lisa's voice was hoarse but steady. It's not just energy, it's memory. The crystals are letting us share instinct, tactics, reaction times. We're fighting like one being, but if the crystals break... The ship lurched violently as another blast hit. Sparks showered from overhead. Jake slammed his fist on the armrest. Hold together, we're not done yet. Then something extraordinary happened. Shandar's hologram appeared on the bridge, his crystals blazing with fierce light. But it wasn't just him. One by one, other figures appeared, alien forms Jake didn't recognize, tall insectoid shapes, beings with wings of fire, creatures that shimmered like liquid metal. Dozens of them, their holograms flickering into the human ships. Lisa's eyes went wide. What is this? Shandar's voice rang like a chorus of bells. The network carries further than you know. Across the stars, others feel your fight. Survivors, outcasts, hidden peoples scattered by the Council. You are not alone. The bridge crew stared, stunned, as more holograms appeared. Alien warriors, engineers, leaders, survivors of Council purges, all connected now by the living crystal network. Jake's throat tightened. How many? Shandar's crystals flared. Dozens of species, hundreds of fleets, waiting, watching, ready. Before Jake could answer, alarms blared again. The Divine Authority was charging its main cannon, stronger this time, enough to obliterate half the fleet in one blast. Amy's voice cracked. Captain, if they fire now, even the link won't hold. Jake's mind raced. The fleet could scatter, but then they'd lose the link, or they could hold the formation, gamble everything on one last exchange. He looked at the faces around him. Amy's determination, Lisa's quiet fire, Shandar's glowing eyes. He felt the heartbeat of every ship, every pilot flowing through him. Jake stood tall. Then we hit them first, everything we've got. The human fleet shifted in unison, every ship's weapons glowing brighter than ever before. The crystals hummed, resonating like a galaxy of voices singing the same song. The Divine Authority's cannon charged to critical. The void shook with power. Fire, Jake roared. Dozens of crystal lances merged into one colossal beam, white-hot and blinding. It struck the dreadnought head-on, just as its cannon released. The universe lit with fire. For a heartbeat, nothing existed but light. Then the dreadnought cracked, its shields shattered, its hull split open in a rending scream of torn metal. A blast wave of energy tore through its structure, ripping it apart in a chain of explosions. The Divine Authority, the Council's symbol of dominance, was gone. The human fleet reeled in stunned silence, their ships glowing faintly with the aftershock. On the Defiance, Amy whispered, We destroyed a dreadnought. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. We just proved the Council can bleed. But before anyone could celebrate, the comm crackled with a flood of voices. Dozens, hundreds, alien voices all carried through the crystal network. This is Grather of the Velter. We rise with you. This is Commander Eslek of the Morak Strike Fleets. The Council will pay. This is the Quintal Resistance. We are ready. Jake's chest pounded. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were leading a rebellion. But then Amy's console screamed. She paled. Captain, long-range sensors just lit up. Multiple fleets, Council reinforcements, hundreds of ships inbound. The bridge fell silent. They had won the battle, but the war had only just begun. The battlefield was quiet now, save for the drifting wreckage of the Divine Authority. Pieces of the dreadnought spun through the void like broken monuments to a fallen empire. Fires burned inside torn hulls, their light reflecting off the crystalline glow of the human fleet. But the silence didn't last. The crystal network blazed with voices. Ships across the galaxy were speaking, their signals pouring into the minds of the humans as if they were standing in the same room. This is the Velter Revenge Fleet. For 50 years we've hidden in asteroid fields. Today we rise. The Morak Strike wings are ready. Our children will not live in fear again. The Quintal shadow ships move as one. Your battle is ours. Jake stood at the center of the Defiance's bridge, listening as the galaxy erupted in defiance. Dozens of species, long thought extinct, were answering the call. The Council's victims had been scattered, broken, forced to hide in shadows, but they had not been destroyed. And now they had hope. Amy Chen's hands flew across her console. Captain, I'm tracking activity in 17 star systems. Council patrols are under attack. Outposts are falling. It's spreading like wildfire. Lisa Hayes' voice shook. All of this because we chose to help one ship. Jake stared at the wreckage of the Divine Authority. His choice had lit the fuse of a galactic rebellion. But the reality came crashing back as Amy's console shrieked. Incoming, multiple fleets dropping out of FTL, Council reinforcements, hundreds of ships, sir. On the view screen, red icons filled the tactical map. The Council had unleashed the storm. The Council fleet was massive. Cruisers, destroyers, battleships, enough firepower to reduce the solar system to ash. They dwarfed the 30 battered human vessels, their numbers overwhelming. Amy's face paled. We can't fight that many, not even with the hybrids. Jake's jaw tightened. He knew she was right. The link had given them strength, but they were still outnumbered 10 to 1. If they stood here, Earth would burn before the rebellion could even begin. Shandar's hologram flickered, his crystals dim with fatigue but steady. Do not despair. Others move. The network coordinates them. When you struck here, they struck elsewhere. The Council bleeds on many fronts. Jake nodded slowly. So we don't win this battle, we survive it. We buy time for the rebellion to grow. Lisa's eyes burned. Then we need to run. Jake turned to his officers. All ships prepare emergency jump. Plot scatter trajectories. We regroup at Luna Station. We don't have to win here, we just have to live. The comms lit up with confirmations. Engines roared to life, crystal cores humming with resonance. But the Council was already moving. Their fleet advanced in precise formation, weapons glowing with lethal energy. Amy's voice was tight. They'll be in firing range in 3 minutes. Jake's pulse thundered in his ears. Then we need a distraction. On Mars, riots still raged in the colonies, fueled by fear and propaganda. But when the Council fleet appeared in the skies, humanity saw the truth with their own eyes. Danny Brooks, a Marine stationed on the surface, sprinted through the chaos as alarms blared. Colonists who had been shouting for the KTHVAR's removal now stared upward in horror as the sky filled with alien warships. Danny's comm crackled with orders. All defense units to the guns, Mars will not fall without a fight. The colony's surface cannons roared, firing beams of plasma into the sky. The weapons were crude compared to Council technology, but the hybrids had already begun to spread. A handful of crystal cores pulsed inside the cannons, their shots burning brighter, cutting deeper. Danny took his post, slamming a power cell into his rifle. His squad around him, humans and KTHVAR together, stood ready. Crystals glowed on alien shoulders beside human steel. He looked at his young KTHVAR friend, Valandra. Her crystals pulsed pink with fear, then steadied into blue as she placed a glowing hand on the cannon's plating. Together, she whispered through her translator. Danny nodded, together. Back in Earth's government halls, President Amy Foster stood in her war room surrounded by frantic advisors. Screens showed the Council fleet massing in the solar system. Civilian broadcasts screamed with panic. An aide burst into the room. Madam President, the Council has sent an ultimatum. They demand immediate surrender of the KTHVAR, or they'll level Earth. The chamber erupted in shouts. Some urged compliance, others shouted for war. Foster raised a hand, silencing them. She stared at the screen showing the alien fleet blotting out the stars. Her voice was low but steady. We gave the KTHVAR sanctuary. If we betray them now, we betray ourselves. We won't surrender. The chamber fell silent. Advisors looked at her with horror, with awe, with fear. Foster turned to her generals. Contact Captain Morrison. Tell him, stand fast. The Alliance is being born today, whether the Council likes it or not. On the Defiance, Jake's fleet prepared for its desperate retreat. Amy called out, jump drives at 60%. We need more time. Jake's eyes flicked to the tactical screen. The Council ships were almost in range. Their formation was perfect, unbreakable. Then the crystal network pulsed with new voices. This is Commander Threx of the Quintal. Strike group arriving now. Morek wings entering on Council's flank. Velter Revenge fleet dropping out of FTL behind enemy lines. On the screen, dozens of ships appeared. Alien vessels, long hidden, now blazing with vengeance. They tore into the Council's formation, striking with weapons and tactics the enemy hadn't faced in centuries. The solar system erupted in chaos. Lisa's eyes went wide. They came, they actually came. Shandar's crystals blazed with fierce light. The outcasts rise, the galaxy awakens. Jake felt his chest tighten. For the first time, they weren't alone. The rebellion was real. But the Council wasn't finished. The divine authority was gone, but the reinforcements carried something darker. Amy's console screamed with new readings. Captain, new signature detected. Massive energy source. It's not a ship, it's something else. The view screen shifted, zooming on the edge of the system. A structure unfolded from the void, vast, angular, bristling with crystalline spires stolen from conquered worlds. It pulsed with unnatural light. Lisa's face went pale. That's not just a weapon, it's a fortress. Amy whispered the words that froze the room. Council superstructure, a command hub, they brought it here. the structure's core lit with ominous glow, energy building like the heart of a star. It wasn't just here to fight, it was here to erase. Jake's stomach dropped. The rebellion had drawn first blood, but the council was answering with annihilation. He gritted his teeth, every muscle trembling with resolve. All ships prepare for the worst. The galaxy is watching. If we fall here, it all ends. The council's fortress unfolded like a nightmare made of glass and steel. Its spires twisted into the void, bristling with weapons that pulsed with stolen crystal light. Energy surged through its veins, humming like the heart of a newborn star. On the Defiance's bridge, the crew stared in stunned silence. Amy Chen's voice cracked. "Captain, sensors say that thing could wipe out a planet in a single shot." Lisa Hayes whispered, "It's not just a fortress, it's a grave maker." Shandar's hologram flickered into existence beside them, his crystalline body glowing dim with strain. "The Council built this with pieces stolen from the Fallen, Veltor, Quintal, Kthvar. It is a monument to every world they erased." His voice deepened. "But monuments can fall." Jake Morrison's fists clenched against the armrest of his chair. His eyes burned with grim determination. "Then we'll make sure this one does." The fortress lit the void with death. A lance of pure energy erupted from its core, sweeping across the battlefield. An entire Morak squadron vanished in the blast, their ships torn apart in silent bursts of fire. Gasps filled the bridge. Amy shouted, "Shields won't hold against that, sir, not even with the hybrids." Jake's jaw tightened. The network gave them unity, but unity alone wasn't enough against a weapon designed to erase species. Shandar's voice broke the silence. "There is one path left, dangerous, but it is what we have kept hidden even from ourselves." Jake turned sharply. "What path?" The Elder's crystals flared with searing light. "A crystal chorus. All hybrid cores, all living fragments linked together. It would become more than defense, more than weapons. It would become a song of destruction and creation, a song strong enough to shatter even that fortress." Lisa's face went pale. "But if the network collapses—" Shandar bowed his head. "Then every linked crystal dies, every Kthvar, every fragment of memory, every history we carry, we would cease." The bridge froze. The choice wasn't just about battle. It was about survival, about genocide undone or repeated. Jake's chest ached. He looked at Shandar, at Lisa, at Amy, at the officers waiting for his word. He thought of Earth, of his daughter. He thought of 50,000 refugees who had begged for sanctuary. And he knew. He drew a breath. "Shandar, if your people are willing, we'll sing that song together, and if this is the end, then we end standing." The order spread across the fleet. Crystal cores pulsed brighter, brighter still, resonating like tuning forks across the void. Ships trembled with the power building inside them. Jake felt it in his chest, in his bones, in his very mind. Not just his crew, but every crew. Not just humans, but Kthvar, Veltor, Morak. Thoughts and feelings flowed together, fear, hope, rage, determination. For the first time in history, dozens of species thought and fought as one. The fortress's core built toward another shot. The Council meant to end the rebellion here and now. Jake rose to his feet, every word carrying across the network. "This is Captain Morrison. To every ship, every being, we stand together or we die alone. Fire when I give the word, for the fallen, for the forgotten, for the free." The Council's fortress fired. A colossal beam of annihilation erupted, sweeping toward the human fleet. Space itself seemed to bend under its fury. "Now," Jake roared. The fleet unleashed its chorus. Crystal light blazed from every ship, merging into a single, impossible wave. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was something alive, something that pulsed with memory, with unity, with hope. It met the fortress's beam head-on. The void ignited. Light consumed everything, blinding, overwhelming. For a moment there was no war, no ships, no council, only the song. Through the network, Jake saw flashes of memory not his own. Gardens of crystal on the Kthvar homeworld, the roaring seas of the Veltor, the soft glow of Morak caverns, centuries of life, of history, of love, all pouring into the chorus. And then the fortress cracked. Its stolen crystals screamed as the living chorus overwhelmed them. Spires shattered, energy conduits exploded. The core fractured, light spilling out in uncontrolled fury. The Council's command hub, its symbol of power, collapsed into itself, torn apart by the very crystals it had tried to enslave. The fortress was gone. Silence. Then cheers across the fleet, voices shouted in triumph, disbelief, joy. The impossible had happened. The Council's ultimate weapon was destroyed. On the Defiance, Amy slumped in her chair, tears streaking her face. We did it. Lisa pressed her trembling hands against her console, her voice shaking. The chorus held, the crystals, Shandar's people, they survived. Jake exhaled slowly, a weight lifting from his chest. They hadn't just won a battle, they had saved an entire people's history. Shandar's hologram flickered, his crystals glowing with fierce light. The song lives, and so do we. This day the galaxy changes. The rebellion spread like wildfire. Across star systems, hidden fleets rose, outposts fell, council soldiers surrendered. News of the fortress's destruction traveled faster than light through the crystal network, carried in pulses of shared memory. Worlds once silent now spoke. Species once scattered now rallied. The council, once seen as untouchable, was bleeding from 1,000 wounds. At Earth's government hall, President Foster stood before a room of exhausted leaders. She watched footage of alien ships working alongside human fleets, of Mars colonists fighting shoulder to shoulder with KTHVAR warriors. She lifted her voice, steady and proud. Let it be known, this is not just humanity's fight. This is the fight of every free being. Today we are no longer outcasts. Today we are the Free Species Alliance. The name spread instantly across the crystal network, echoed by dozens of voices. The Free Species Alliance. Months later, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of New Hope Station, the galaxy's first Alliance stronghold. Through the massive windows, he watched ships from 30 different species working together, building, trading, living. Beside him stood Shandar, his crystals glowing soft gold. When we came to you, we were dying. We expected rejection, as always before, but you gave us sanctuary, and in doing so, you gave hope to many more. Jake's voice was low, heavy with memory. We almost lost it all if that chorus had failed. But it did not, Shandar interrupted gently. Because humans chose compassion when others chose fear. That is your gift, not strength of arms, not cunning of politics, compassion. Lisa Hayes joined them, a tablet in her hands. She looked tired but happy. The network's growing every day. Dozens of species are sharing knowledge. Science, medicine, art, things the Council suppressed for centuries. We're building something the galaxy has never seen before. Jake looked out at the stars, his reflection framed against them. Then let's make sure we don't waste it. But even in victory, shadows lingered. In the dark reaches of the galaxy, remnants of the Council gathered. Admirals and warlords swore vengeance, their fleets licking their wounds but not destroyed. One message slipped through the fractured network, intercepted by Alliance intelligence. The humans think themselves saviors, but compassion is weakness. They will learn, the Council will return. Jake read the report in silence, then looked back at the stars. He knew the war wasn't over. The galaxy was too vast, too dangerous, but something had changed. For the first time, they weren't fighting alone. He whispered to himself, let them come, this time we'll be ready. Epilogue: The Crystal Exodus. What began with a dying ship at the edge of the solar system had become something far greater. A choice born of compassion had shattered the Council's illusion of invincibility. A chorus of voices, once silenced, now sang in unison. Humanity, once mistrusted, now stood at the center of a galaxy reborn. The Crystal Exodus was no longer just about survival. It was about freedom, about hope, about the simple, defiant truth that kindness could be stronger than tyranny. And as the Free Species Alliance spread its light into the dark, the galaxy would never be the same again.